Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful All-Star break. Hope you had fun if you in your props and all the goofy stuff that you can bet on in the All-Star game hit. But we are back. We are back. We are back. It's the Spin Zone for a Friday Super Show. As you saw on X, my guy Sharpie still is taking care of his family, and so we'll be back shortly. But for now, we do have a Friday Super Show. We promised you 6 pitchers every Friday and will deliver. So I'm your host, Spin Doc, and this show is being brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please do subscribe to that if you haven't already for access to all of our daily content. If you're not already, please follow me at Spin Doc Sports on X. Like and share the video. We appreciate the love. Thank you all so much. It's been a few days, but it feels like it's been forever. It was really weird the last few days, not like getting up and being like, okay, so who are we looking at today? Who makes the finalist list? I'm like, oh, that's right, nothing, because there's no baseball. But we are back for the second half of the season, and we're going to have to change the way that we approach some things. And I'll talk about what that means in just a moment, because there's a bunch of common misconceptions that, to be honest, in my first year doing this, I made the mistake of as well. And I see people, I already looked on X for the last few days and see people doing it all the way through. So I'll talk about what those are and how you can avoid them in just a moment. So we have 6 pitchers to get to. We have a fantasy football segment to get to with a guy that I think is horribly overvalued, and a guy in one of my biggest money dynasty leagues that I might actually be keeping this year, who you might not suspect. So we'll talk about that. But like I said, please do smash the like button. Please subscribe, share this. We do appreciate all the love. And before we get going, also, if there are any pitchers or games or whatever you want to talk about, you want me to review at the end as a quick review, please do put them in the chat. I will be happy to do so. First off, I want to say what's up to Philip Magruder. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you and glad to be back. Thank you. Thank you. Same thing with Eric J. What is up, my guy? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. And so before we get going, normally this is the part where we talk about what did we learn from yesterday, but obviously there was no baseball. So let's talk about what to look for in the MLB second half, because I see this way too often, and I see mistake after mistake being made when it comes to capping things in the second half, because people approach the second half, especially right now, as we wait for the July 31st trade deadline for MLB. We got 2 weeks for it, and that sets up an interesting situation for a number of guys. So, like I said, I see it all over X. I'm not going to pontificate on what I think about trendy betting and, hitting 8 of last 9 and 5 of last 7 where the temperature has been 64 to all that stuff. You know my thoughts on that. That's not a winning strategy. Never has been, never will be. And people who cap like that and who call it that, saying that they're like following the numbers and the science, have no idea what they're doing. But I will digress, and we're going to focus on what we're going to do. So here are a couple things that I would advise to you as what to look for in the second half, especially if you're doing strikeout or hitters props, quite honestly. Is number one, the trade deadline is July 31st. And so is this player potentially up for a trade? Because it does change how this person could be used. It also changes how they're showcased. It changes everything. The easiest way you can do that, MLB trade rumors, all one word, all lowercase, is a great place to kind of get what the latest is. You can also just do a search for player name and trade, and just to check if there's anybody you haven't heard of where it's like, hey, this guy might be on the block. If it's like, there's some guys that are easy. Like Zach Wheeler is not getting traded. Tarek Skubal is not getting traded. I mean, Aaron Judge is not getting traded. I mean, those are the obvious ones. But some of the pitchers and some of the guys, some of the second, third tier guys, if depending on what team they're on, they might be on the move. And so for guys that are potentially going to be on the move, what you'll probably see is you're probably going to see them go a little bit longer in their first to last start before the trade deadline. And the reason why is to showcase them. It's to say, hey, look at this guy. He's so awesome. And look at his fancy pitching skills, or look at how amazing he is at hitting left-handed, or whatever the case might be, right? It's to showcase them for potential teams. Now, in the case of a pitcher, what you might see is in their last start before the trade deadline, if they've been mentioned in a number of trade talks or trade rumors, there is the potential that whatever their average start is, like let's just say it's 5 2/3 innings or 6 innings, it's going to be like 4. So it's going to be like 65 pitches and out. The reason why is that if you have a deal that's potentially in place for a player, what's the easiest way to kill it? Well, he throws too many pitches and throws his arm out, right? So you have to watch for those things. Just a quick search, if it's not an obvious guy, just to see. Like I said, I go to MLBTradeRumors.com and I might just do a quick search. And when I say like legitimate rumors, I'm not like don't get too deep into it. Don't spend more than about 2 minutes, because you'll get into like a bunch of like fan sites that do all these like, here's a hypothetical trade that could send Tarek Skubal, to the Yankees. No, that's not happening. So shut up. Like stupid fan shit like that is stuff that you don't pay attention to. I always make sure I pay attention to, is it a legitimate media source for that team? Fan theories are fun to look at and fun to talk about, but when you're capping, they're useless. So is it an actual media source for the team? So it'd be like, John Smith of WXYZ radio, who covers the Tigers, said that, Reese Olson, and this isn't true, Reese Olson might be on the block for the right type of stuff. Like that is stuff you want to pay attention to, but otherwise don't pay attention to fan stuff. Number 2, and this is just as I think sometimes more important, is what is their innings total at, especially for playoff teams. You see this all the time where all of a sudden guys starts, and this has happened to Paul Skeens before the All-Star break, start getting shorter, and they start getting shorter. And, people start to, wow, what are they doing? He's only at 74 pitches. Like, why are they pulling him? The easiest way to check that is go back and look, especially with the young guy, at his minor league starts, minor league seasons. How many innings did he throw? Now look at his major league. How many innings did he throw? And if he continues on his current pace right now in MLB, how many innings will he throw? These guys aren't supermen. Their arms only go so far. And if you have a team, especially a postseason team, especially a team that's going to the playoffs, right? Like let's just take the I don't want to use the Dodgers because they're a different situation, but let's just take any playoff team. And you have a guy who is approaching, like, actually you can use the Dodgers. Dustin May would be a good example. Is that so? Dustin May, so far in his career overall, in his like ever is what I'm talking about. Dustin May has, in the major leagues, has never thrown for more than 56 innings. You go back to the minor leagues, it's kind of the same thing. He's at 94 this year. Now, does that mean anything? It could. It could, because he's already almost doubled his innings that he's ever thrown in his career. So the first time that you do that, or if it's a like older, like veteran type guy, is that, are you going to tax his arm out? So you might see some shorter starts, especially if it's a team going to the playoffs, because what you want is you want to keep that guy fresh for postseason games versus like a random Wednesday game, in the regular season in the middle of the day. So I always just take a look if it's not like an ace that I know is going to be a workhorse, again, I'll go back like Wheeler, Skubal, like those guys are workhorses. Even Skubal, though, even Skubal has had his innings limited later in the season. Skeens is having his innings limited. And I check and see, like, if they continue at their current pace, how many innings are these guys going to throw? Because the last thing you want is you want to throw a guy's arm out before the postseason. You saw it with Jack Flaherty last year. Jack Flaherty registered a ton of innings, and especially after he got traded. He with two teams, with the Tigers and the Dodgers, he registered a ton of innings, and his fastball was at like 90 in the postseason. So you don't want to do that. So you got to be careful with those things. The other thing is that on the flip side, this is the last piece I'll talk about. I'll get to the rest of the chat, and then we'll get on with the business. So you have to pay attention to what are teams playing for, because as teams start to fade from the postseason, and especially if a team who's like right around the 500 mark starts making trades where they're trading away guys, like I'll use my Twins, for example, like if they trade away Joe Ryan, and if I know my son is telling me, like, don't speak that into existence, and you know he'll blame me if it happens for speaking it into existence. But let's say the Twins trade Joe Ryan, and that's a sign that they're packing it in for the season and saying, we don't think we're going to make the playoffs, so we're going to be sellers and whatever. What you'll start to see for teams that do that is you'll start to see young guys come up. You'll start to see more call-ups. You'll start to see the youngins get more at-bats, more plate appearances, more time. And those are guys who, even though they're probably, I mean, I'm sure they're very talented, you can potentially pick on from a strikeout perspective, especially if it's some of their first starts in the majors. So you got to watch and see what teams do. Right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern. You want to still check trade rumors, but we're kind of in a holding pattern until July 31st. Normally, it's like the 3 or 4 days before where things start kicking into high gear. I wouldn't expect any major trades in the next week, but the 29th, 30th, and 31st, I would expect there to be some significant activity. And then obviously, whatever the show that I have right after the All-Star break, I'll have a whole segment where we'll kind of break down who got dealt, what does it mean, where things stand, etc. So those are the things that I would look for. Now, the mistake that people make all the time, and I see them making it on X today, is basically just saying that the second half of the season, right after the All-Star break, even with guys that might be on the trading block, it's going to be the exact same thing as the first, because in the first half, he hit this in 4 out of 5 starts, so ergo, it's going to happen tonight. It's not the way it works, and that's not the way. You have to understand how teams manage these players. And so it's another reason why trend betting just never, ever works. So long term. All right. Hopefully that helped you. I know it went a little bit longer than I had normally planned to for the opening segment, but wanted to kind of get everybody reacclimated. Let's get to the business here. Eric, I will talk about Taj Bradley at the very end. He's not one of the 6 we're talking about, but I will get to him at the end. And Bird, welcome in, and thank you, saying going with the opener tonight. We were talking about this in VIP for a while this morning. Was there were a bunch of teams that didn't have starters officially announced, and most of them you could go to the team, to like an official media source that covers the team, and you could find out who it is. The Yankees were the one exception. The belief was that they would go with Fried, but it looks like they're going to go with an opener tonight. So no strikeout props for the Yankees at all. Population, welcome in, and glad you are back as well. I'm glad MLB is back, but also glad you guys are back as well. So thank you. And Cover Kings, welcome in, and saying this looks like a parlay. Glass now 5+ Ks, and Slade 4+ Ks at -130. And also Slade and Luzardo at 5+ each for -115. And Roger, welcome in, my friend. Thank you so much, and glad to have you back. And let's go indeed. I appreciate you. Appreciate all of y'all. And so one thing to know before we go on with the 6 pictures that we do have to talk about today is all the charts that I'm going to show you. If you remember the charts that I showed time to time, these are the charts that VIP sees. But all of these were sent and done before the lines were out. So I ran this before the lines come out. I like to do that a lot because I like to compare it and say, this is what the math says. Now, what do the books say? And so forth. So understand that it's just me saying this is what the pure numbers state. All right, with that in mind, we will talk about our first pitcher, and it is Mr. Dylan Cease. The righty is striking guys out at a 29% clip and walking guys at an 8% clip. He gets, or 8.8, sorry, he gets the Nats tonight on the road, and this line is at an interesting number. We have, most books are hanging an over 5.5 at a very, very gross price of -150. And we also have an under at plus money. So Dylan Cease, this one popped to me immediately because of a number of things. Number one is Cease is averaging 6.79 strikeouts per game. In his last 10, he's averaging 7.1. So those are things that attract public bettors quite a bit. He's also, in his last 10, is 8-2 to 6+. And when he's been set at 5.5 over his last 10, he is 2-0 to that number. Cease also has a 27.5% K percentage against this projected lineup, which is 6 lefties and 3 righties. So we're coming out here with a number that is interesting because you have basically Cease averaging 7 and you have him dropped. And he's now, it's juiced. I get it on the over, but it's dropped to a 5.5. The only book hanging, actually, there's 2 books now. FanDuel follow, or DraftKings followed FanDuel. They're both hanging 6.5s. What this tells me is that the books are saying that the most likely outcome is 6, but there's also some protective measures that I think that they're taking, because while there's nothing confirmed yet, because the radar is still updating, we're not close enough to first pitch, the current weather forecast does have some potential showers early and potential storms late. So if you want to even think about an over with Cease, you really can't when it comes to a weather game. I just never can take pitchers on an over when there's potential weather. So and so Kevin Roth, who is the chief meteorologist for Roto Grinders, and you can find him at Kevin Roth WX on X. I wholeheartedly recommend you follow him. The dude is so accurate, puts up models, knows his stuff, and does a forecast purely based on what the weather is going to be at the ballpark. Because a lot of other sites will only put what the weather is going to have a forecast of the city. But if it's like New York City, that's a big place. It could be raining like cats and dogs, and then it could be sunny elsewhere in the city because it's so big. Kevin Roth actually does at the ballpark itself. So we don't have full details yet, but this could be a potential rain game, so keep that in mind. Now, when we do look at Cease, what we do have is a couple things. With Cease, what you always need, because of the low amount of time he spends in the zone, 46.4%, which is about 2% under league average, is you need chase. You need guys to chase, and you need guys to not make contact when they do. For those who are just seeing these charts for the first time, the 2 columns on the left that say Z and C are how a guy's overall swing percentage compares to league average. Z is zone, C is chase, or outside of the zone. And it goes from -2 all the way up to 2. -2 would be the lowest, meaning it's way under average, and 2 would be the highest, means it's way over average. 0 obviously being it's within a few percentage points of being league average. So we look at the Nationals, and if it's this projected lineup, what I see is 4 chasers. Now, of these 4 chasers, Abrams, Garcia, House, and Adams. So Abrams makes great chase contact when he does, which is why I hedged, and especially because he's got an absurdly low strikeout percentage over his last 15 days, even though the Nats strikeout percentage has been up in a lot of places. And given his past history against Cease, that's why I only put him down for a half. Go a couple spots down to Garcia. Very, very similar situation where he does chase a lot, but he also makes contact about 5% over league average. So can't automatically assume it's going to be a strikeout. You got to say it's probably flip a coin 50-50. Going down, House is the guy that if you want an under for this game, you should really be hoping is not in the lineup, because he does chase a ton. And when I say a ton, he's top 20% in all baseball in chasing. And as you can see, Chase percentage under is about 9% under, actually exactly 9% under league average. So I have him for a 1+. If you want to be on the under in this one, which for me is the only way I'm looking if I do end up playing it, is you don't want him in the lineup or you want him batting ninth. I still think he'll be in. He's in all projecteds, but I would really, really hope that he wouldn't be in. The exact same thing goes for Riley Adams. Chases a ton, as you can see, and also has a 40%. It has an even worse chase contact percentage than House does. So both of those are ones for sure. Both of those can be 1.25s. And the other one that is a little bit of an anomaly, which I'm interested to see where they bat him, is Young at the bottom. Reason being is he doesn't chase. He's got stellar chase contact, but as you can see on the far two columns is versus SP starting pitcher. He's faced Cease 5 times and he's struck out 4 times. And when you look at this metric, so if you took off the name, if you took off all of the everything but the middle part that's colored, and you said these are the guy's metrics, he's faced a pitcher like Dylan Cease, who relies on chase because he's outside of the zone a lot. How many times would he strike out of 5? And I would probably say once, maybe twice. I wouldn't say 4. So I'm interested to see what they do with Young. The rest of the lineup going across the board, the thing that I like about a lot of this Nats lineup is you have a guy like Lyle here who doesn't chase, makes great contact when he does. You have a guy like Josh Bell who has faced Cease 14 times, makes above average chase contact. And then right next to him, you have Lowe. And so if these two are going to bat in the 4 and 5, that's just an absolute no K zone, dead zone for Cease, because as you can see, lifetime, they have 3 strikeouts and 30 plate appearances against him, 10%. So highly, highly unlikely, even with some of Lowe's strikeout percentage lately, which hasn't been very good, is that he's had phenomenal success against Dylan Cease and has never struck out in 16 plate appearances. So you have to consider those 2 dead spots. You also have to consider Lyle a dead spot because of how incredible his contact metrics are. I wish that I could put Wood as lower than a 1, but obviously he struck out all 3 times he's faced him, even though he doesn't chase. So really where I come up with for this one is I'm coming up with 6 as well. And again, I ran this before the line came out. What the guys that, because I am looking under, if anything, if I run with this one, the guys that I don't want in this lineup is I don't want House in, I don't want Adams in. I thought I wanted Young in, but the metrics say no, and I would prefer not to have Wood in. So really it's House and Adams for sure. Would prefer Wood bat lower in the lineup. I don't necessarily think he's got to be out, but lower in the lineup. And so if one of those 3 guys are not in and we get a guy with lower chase overall, then this could very easily be an underplay. It also could be a case where the umpire breaks the tie, because if we do have half this lineup that chases at league average or less, then if that's going to happen and you have an ump who's going to give us some favorable calls, especially on the outside, that could play into our favor because Cease does have or can have the tendency to rack up his pitch count. So I think it's under or nothing. Especially with the pending weather situation. I saw a couple comments. Cover Kings, I know, saying Cease scares me. Line says he's going to get destroyed. Let's see, 2.5 earned runs, 4.5 hits. I mean, the earned runs are a little concerning that they're up at 2.5 because he's only gotten that because he's been put again at 2.5 against teams like the Phillies, the Dodgers, so heavier hitting teams, which the Nationals are not. So I see where you're coming from there. And no outs line. Yeah, I think that part of that is because of the weather. If an outs line does come out and you do happen to see it, what it should be at is it should be at about 17.5. You should see 17.5, maybe 16.5 with heavy juice on the over. If you start seeing anything else, then that might tell you something. And then Population saying last year Cease had that no-hitter with 9 Ks would account for that history. Well, except for there's only a few guys in the lineup that he actually faced during that time. I think that's where that's coming from, because He wouldn't have faced House. He wouldn't have faced Lyle. He wouldn't have faced Adams. And I'm trying to think, there were one or two other guys that I think he didn't face in that lineup. So it's like half and half. So and then Cover King saying, "Oh, nice for Cover Kings. K alt parlay streak 25 out of 30, very nice." But yeah, I don't see. I personally, I don't see a whole lot of value on an over here. I think that if I am going to play this one, I'm probably going to roll with an under, and it probably would be an under 5.5. Maybe with the right scenario, would want to just put a full unit and not play the juice, because minus 155 is kind of gross. Might want to do like just a full unit, no juice, just play one unit straight up on the under 6.5. Don't know yet. It's going to depend on the lineup, and it's also going to depend on the umpire, because right now we're kind of right on the edge of the number of chasers that you need or that you want to see with Dylan Cease, because as you can see in this upper right hand corner here, he does have a very, very low percentage of time in the zone. So that's my breakdown on Cease. We will move on to the next pitcher, and starting at the same time, we have Jesus Luzardo. Jesus Luzardo, the lefty, is striking out guys at a 27.3% clip, walking guys at an 8.3% clip, 8.1, I'm sorry. He gets the Angels tonight. This line is exactly where I thought it would be. I figured we get a 6.5 juiced, and we got, oh, look at that, a 6.5 juiced. So bringing up Luzardo here, this one I think is set exactly where it should be given the circumstances. Now, you think the Angels, and you obviously think strikeouts, but Luzardo is 6-4 over his last 10 to hitting 7+. When he's been set at this number in that same time frame, he is 2-3. Now, against this lineup, he does have a decent strikeout percentage of 38.5% in 39 plate appearances. So that is definitely accounted for in here. But the other thing that I saw that I found interesting was the Angels, because you think of strikeouts, their overall swing metrics in the month of July have not been that terrible. Their zone contact as a team is above average. Their chase contact is a little bit below average, but they're also not chasing as much. Their chase rate is down by almost 4.5%. And so part of that is with some of the guys that they brought along early in the season getting a little more disciplined. But will it be enough against Jesus Luzardo? So when I look at Luzardo, what I typically will look for is I look for chase and I look for chase contact. And obviously, as you can see, there's just chase contact. There is a grotesque absence of chase contact in this lineup. 8 of 9 are under league average. Now, the problem becomes is that only 3 of them by the numbers chase: Adele, D'Arnaud, and Rengifo. Only those 3 chase, and Rengifo's got pretty good numbers against them. Adele hasn't have many plate appearances. D'Arnaud, obviously not so much. So there's not a whole lot of guys that are going to chase in this lineup, and you can't get a lack of chase contact if you're not going to chase, period. So what I'm looking for the guys that don't chase is I'm looking for what their whiff percentage against a four-seam fastball is. While Luzardo only generates an 18.9% whiff rate on his four-seam fastball, he can run it up to 97, 98 miles an hour, and you do have a number of guys in this projected lineup, which is 1 lefty and 8 righties, the only lefty being Shanuel, as it should be, who do have a high whiff percentage to that four-seam fastball, 25% or more, because league average is about 22.5, 23 to any four-seamer. And so you have about half the lineup that's over that. Now, my problem here becomes, and this has been my problem with Luzardo for pretty much the entire year, and probably why I'm going to end up passing on him, even though you can see the past history, even though you can see the absolutely horrendous chase contact in this lineup, even though all those things, here's my problem. Luzardo, striking righties out at 23.8%. We got 8 of them. And not only do we have 8 of them, but we also have of those righties is that we have a number of them who don't chase. And so while their chase contact is horrible, if you're not going to chase to begin with, then you don't have to worry about it. And of those same righties, you only have 3 of them that are under. I'm sorry, 4 if you count Adele. That are. Oh, actually 3 that are significantly under league average when it comes to zone contact. So where I land with this one is I think the line is right. I think that the situation that he's in, I think that everything is set exactly as it should be. And what that tells me is then, because it's hard for me to go with an under with this absolutely horrendous chase contact, but it's also equally as hard for me to go on an over when you have 8 righties and over half of them don't chase. So Luzardo has had some trouble with predominantly righty lineups, especially righties that don't chase. So if you're going to play this one, I know I saw Cover Kings put it in an alt parlay. You can do that. You can bring them down to 6. That might be the way to go for this one, but I'm probably not going to get there on the over 6.5. For me, it's just a little too rich for my blood. If it was an over 6.5 and we got the right lineup and it was like minus 110, maybe even for sure at plus money, I might take a stab at it, but not at minus 140 or whatever it's at now, because this was the line as of last night. So especially when I'm coming up with 6 or I'm coming up with 7-ish, somewhere in that range. And that tells me that I don't really want to pay minus 140 for a pitcher in that spot. All right. So that's Luzardo. We'll move on to pitcher numero tres. And pitcher numero tres would be Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo, the lefty, gets the Mets tonight, and he is striking guys out at a 21.9% rate. That is down significantly from his previous years, and is walking guys at a 5% clip. Now, we get a line that is probably right where it should be at a 5.5, with slightly juiced on the under. I do think that this line is asking for some under money, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Because if we get this projected lineup of 3 lefties and 6 righties, what we need with Lodolo is, and what helped him when he just absolutely torched the Phillies not too long ago, was chase. He got a lot of chase, and he generated a very, very low chase contact. That's what happens when you throw nearly a 12-6 curve as your primary out pitch. Now, we look across this lineup, and there are only 2 Mets hitters who do have chase contact under league average, that being Taylor and Vientos. But we do get Vientos up top. Now, what we also get is we get 5 of 9 who chase at or above league average. And if you haven't faced Lodolo before and you haven't seen his curve before, if you're going to chase above league average, you are making yourself prone to a strikeout. So I look at Vientos, who chases a ton and doesn't have terrible contact. That's 1. That could even be a 1+. Soto can take a lot of pitches. And the problem with that against a pitcher like Lodolo is that even if you're not going to chase that much, Soto has chase contact just barely at league average, and actually has been striking out a decent amount lately. Lodolo has been striking out lefties even higher than 27% over his last few starts. So I'm not sure that I can say Soto for sure is going to K, but weird as it is to say, he's actually a candidate for it. Same thing with Taylor, for sure is a candidate to strike out, as is Nimmo, because Nimmo, he's gotten 2 out of 3 times, and Nimmo does have chase contact right at league average. So I think this line is pretty fair here. The guys that I would not want to see, because I do have a lean on the over for this one, not 100% sure about if we're going to roll with it yet, but the guys that I don't want to see in the lineup are the guys that are projected to bookend, Lindor and McNeil. So Lindor, I'm sure will be in, and I'm sure will lead off. But if we somehow happen to not get McNeil and they decide to go righty instead of lefty, this line and this situation becomes very, very playable because there aren't a whole lot of other people in the Mets lineup that they can put in that would have the contact metrics that McNeil does, even lefty. So, and you can even see here where he has a very low whiff percentage against a curveball. He doesn't chase. He makes great contact when he does. So my question becomes then, how many lefties are the New York Mets going to run here? Because if they are going to only run two, which I'm sure Soto will be in and I'm sure Nimmo will be in, McNeil would be the one to sit. And if McNeil sits and we get one of these other righties in there, that's when the chase contact drops considerably. And that's can be a potential entry spot for Lodolo. I would expect if that happens, that the line move from plus 100 to say minus 112, minus one, maybe even minus 120. But McNeil is the one that I would say you don't want in the lineup. Now, if you're thinking about going under on this one, or if you were thinking about going under on this one, my problem with doing that is that when you have Vientos, when you have Taylor, when you have Nimmo, who struck out 2 out of 3 times against him. So you also have Alonso, who's 2 for 2, and his chase contact is just slightly over league average. There's like 4 or 5. There's 3 to 4 guys who can be high potential for strikeouts, and they can't take them all out. So even if of these guys who have a high and a medium chance of K-ing, even if Lodolo can only get half of those, that's 4 strikeouts right there. So then all you got to do, then you need one to two more, and you have your prop. And that's my problem with playing the under, and that's especially my problem with playing a juiced under in this situation. So it is over or nothing, and I would just really prefer not to see Mr. McNeil in the lineups. And so let's see, Andrew in the house, afternoon. I hope you had a good week as well. It was wonderful. And we actually made money on the All-Star game. They were all unofficial bets, but actually made money on the All-Star game. JT Eel saying, welcome in too, saying books aren't going to account for a one-off. I'm assuming you're talking about Cease and the Nats. If you aren't, please let me know, and apologies there. But for Lodolo, for me, it's a lean on the over. I think that even money is a very, very fair price for it if McNeil is not in the lineup. If it's Lindor and McNeil bookending here, and especially if they decide to go 2 lefties and the one lefty that they don't go with is Nimmo, because he does have poorer chase contact and has struck out 2 out of 3 times against Lodolo, then it probably just becomes a complete no play. All right, we will move on to the line that I told VIP this is what it would be at tonight. Last night, I said I'm expecting this for this guy, and lo and behold, that's exactly what we got. Spencer Strider, the righty, striking guys out at 29% clip, walking guys at a 9.4% clip. He gets the Yankees, and we do have a line that is exactly where I thought it would be. I said we're going to get a juiced 7.5, and that's exactly what we got. So Spencer Strider, you obviously have a whole lot of potential for strikeouts across this lineup, but let's break it down and see if we can get there. So when I look at this lineup, and obviously you can see as the raw math comes up to 7.75, what you have is Spencer looking a lot more like the Spence of old lately. Strider is 4-6 in his last 10, 2-8+. However, it's a little misleading because some of those were before he's kind of started to really come back to form. He is 3-3 when set at this number, so you can't glean a whole lot there. Very low past history against this team, only 17 plate appearances. Obviously, he's got 8 strikeouts, but he hasn't faced a number of guys in this lineup. So what I'm looking for when I look for Spence is, do you chase? And really, it's do you chase? Because if you're going to chase, then you're going to run the risk of striking out against this man because of his slider. And you're really going to run the risk if you chase and have a high whiff percentage against a slider. Mr. Giancarlo Stanton, I'm looking at you. As you can see, all the deep red across for him. He chases right at league average. However, his chase contact is absolutely abysmal, and he has a 50% whiff rate over the last 2 seasons aggregated to a slider. So you're going to do that, you're going to strike out against Strider. It actually wouldn't surprise me if Stanton's left out of the lineup tonight, because he is the exact type of hitter that Strider can just mow down and kill. If Stanton is in the lineup, and especially if he's batting 4th or 5th or anywhere in that area, I actually might take a small shot on Giancarlo Stanton 2+ strikeouts, because all his numbers, he is the exact type of hitter that Spence just mows down. Now, you look at the rest of the Yankees lineup: 4 lefties, 5 righties, and you do see that only 3 of them chase above league average: Dominguez, Bellinger, and Peraza. And so Dominguez, he chases above league average and has a 50% chase contact rate. 32.7 against a slider isn't horrible, but he hasn't seen a slide. Highly doubt he's seen a slider like Spence's. So I got to put him up for 1. I'm sure Judge will strike out, even though he chases below league average, but his chase contact is obviously horrendous. So I'm sure he'll K once. But Bellinger's the interesting one, because Bellinger does chase above league average, but makes stellar contact. Limited past history with him and Spence. I thought about putting him at a 0.5, but I decided to go with my lowest grade, which is a 0.25, because he's been a contact machine lately. And he's especially been a contact machine against the type of slider that Spencer throws. So only a 28.4% whiff percentage. League average is about 33, 34. So in this top part of the lineup, there are a few guys that can be really, really high strikeout candidates. Judge and Stanton for sure. Chisholm for sure. You can see his chase contact right there, 42% whiff rate against the slider. Really, that's kind of the recurring theme that I'm looking for. The interesting anomaly here is Goldie, because Goldie has had ridiculous contact metrics. He's got absurd chase contact and a low whiff percentage against the slider, but I had to put him for 1 because Spence has gotten him 4 out of 8 times. So if Spence is going to face him 3 times, as the numbers say that he will, then chances are pretty good that he's going to get him once. Now, this could be a potential X factor here too, because with Goldie, he's probably going to need to get Goldie to hit 8. Unless Stanton is in and he gets Stanton and Judge both twice, which is possible, which is very, very possible. So, but then going down to the rest of the lineup, you do see that the only guy that chases above average is Peraza, has bad contact. If he's in the 9 hole, my guess is Spence will see him twice, but I still got to put him for 1. So that's how we came to this number. Now, the guys that I'm really interested to see if the Yankees are actually going to bat and where they put them are, Judge will obviously be in for sure, but Stanton, Chisholm, and Peraza, because those 3 guys can very easily account for 4, maybe even if Spence is on, 5 strikeouts because of their poor chase contact. Now, and because Peraza and Stanton are both league average or higher with chase, Chisholm is a little bit under, but still, you add all that up and you got 3 guys that Spence can just mow down. So you got 4 strikeouts, I think, for sure, between those 3, potentially 5, which makes 8 a very, very easily gettable number, because you look across this lineup and really the only dead spot, even potential dead spot that I see, is Cody Bellinger. Bellinger is, and you would think by the numbers that Goldie is, but he's gotten Goldie 4 out of 8 times. So just a ton of poor chase contact in this lineup, and only 3 guys out of 9 that don't chase. And the 3 guys that don't chase, Judge, Chisholm, and Peraza, you can see their chase contact. It's absolutely horrible. So it's juicy for a reason. And if this is the exact lineup that the Yankees are going to go with and is in this order, this could very, very easily become an overplay. This might even be an alt overplay, but you really can't gamble on an under here against the Yankees when you have this hideously low chase contact. And even some of the guys that have high chase contact, Spencer's gotten before. Like, I'm talking about Goldschmidt here. So this is an over or nothing spot for me. I would not be surprised at all if Stanton is either lower in the lineup or just doesn't even play. So Cover King says, I'm looking to alt Strider down to 6 or 7. 9 scares me. I think it's at 7.5 if I remember right. Or I'm assuming you're talking about 8. Let's see. Yeah, 7.5. And thank you to Jay McCarthy for reposting this stream. I do appreciate that, my friend. JT Eel saying, yeah, I was referring to the Cease no hitter. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there, but then the other part too is that, like I said, that like half the lineup didn't play in that game. It's about I think 4 did, 5 didn't, if I remember right. But yeah, if you're playing this line on Spence, and this is the projected lineup we get, you got to go over here. There's just way too many guys in this lineup that are just ripe decay against him. But I'm really interested to see what they do with those 3, with Stanton, Chisholm, and Peraza. So if for some reason we get 2 of those guys out and 1 at the very bottom of the lineup, I might be singing a different tune. So, all right. The next pitcher, if you like talking about strikeouts, this is not the guy to talk about. Poor guy. I loved watching this guy pitch. The Sandy man, Sandy Alcantara. Oh man, hasn't been the same since coming back from TJS from last year. Just has not been the same pitcher. Hasn't even been the same guy. Striking guys out at, oh my Lord, 17.3%. Walking guys at 9%. He gets the anti-strikeout team in the Kansas City Royals. We have a juiced over 3.5 at minus 155 and an under 3.5 at plus 120. Okay. Sandy Alcantara is a guy that I just cannot play an over on. I just can't, even though he's probably going to go 6 innings. I'm sure he'll throw 100 pitches because McCullough, he's the one guy on the staff that McCullough just lets go, whereas he's been quick with the hook for guys like Yuri and guys like Cabrera, and Jansen Junk, et cetera, Max Meyer before he got hurt. But he'll just let Sandy go, even if he's getting Patrick Corbin. And for those that don't know what that means, that's the we're paying you this much money, so you will pitch 5 innings each start, and damn it, you will like it. Doesn't matter if you're giving up 1 run, 10, doesn't make a difference. You will throw 5 innings or 100 pitches, and you will like it. And that's kind of how they operate with Sandy. Now, with Alcantara, his zone contact is just absolutely terrible. He's actually not even trying to strike guys out now when he throws in the zone. He used to go a much deeper mix of 4-seam fastball and sinker, but the velo is down on both pitches. And so when you throw a sinker, it's actually not even a sinker. It's more like a 2-seam fastball. But again, for those that haven't seen my little example before, when you throw a sinker, really what you're doing is you're throwing a 2-seam fastball towards the top of the zone so that it comes down at a downward angle, sinking like this. Batter hits over the top of it and it induces a ground ball. That's really your goal when you throw a sinker. So obviously you can see in his whiff percentage to a sinker of 9%. So even those numbers in red, that's just because my Excel formula color codes it. So don't think that means it's like bad, because I mean their whiff percentages are all under 17% or under 16% to a sinker. That's not bad at all. So this predicted lineup of 4 lefties and 5 righties. Can you find 4 strikeouts in this lineup? I guess technically you can, but keep in mind that the raw math averages out to 4, but you also got to remember is that like with some of these guys, I mean, you can't have 0.5 of a strikeout. You can't have 0.25 of a strikeout. So really the only one that I see in here that I can probably count on for a strikeout would be Salvi. That would be the only guy, and that would be just because he does chase a good amount and does have a high whiff percentage to a slider, which Alcantara, it's not the slider of old that he's had, but it can still work. So he's really the only guy that I have. Now, the other thing I want to see is with the newly acquired will the newly acquired Adam Frazier be in the lineup? The Royals did just trade with the Pirates for Adam Frazier. He's been a high contact guy all year. You can obviously see that he has only struck out once in 18 plate appearances against Alcantara. Stellar history. if they put him in the lineup, then that's an obvious complete dead spot, as would be Pascantino, as would be Garcia, as would be Lofton. So those are the 4 that you want in if you want to go on an under. But it makes absolutely no sense to pay juice for an over for Sandy Alcantara, even though it is only 3.5 and he is at home. It just makes no sense. So you're playing the under or you're playing nothing. And if I'm going to play the under, I want and really need Pascantino, Garcia, Frazier, and Lofton in. I'm sure Salvi will be in, so I'm not going to even try to argue against that one. Caglione would be probably better if we could get somebody else in, or if we get him moved down. And then the other guy that I would not want to see in the lineup for any of these guys except Salvi would be Rave, because Rave does have the kind of metrics that could K to Alcantara. So I think this one's going to straddle the line between 3.5 and 4, or between 3 and 4 pretty much the whole game. So I don't see Sandy finishing with anything more than 4. I also don't see him, I'm sure I can see him finishing with 2 or 3. So it's a tight rope to walk, which is why if you're going to play it, I would strongly suggest that you play the under because of the plus money. But Sandy, man, just guy hasn't been the same. And I hope he comes back, because I used to love watching him pitch pre-injury, but he has not been the same pitcher since he has come back. Let's see, we got Adams Digest. Welcome in. Thank you. And hey, better late than never. And I don't know when you joined, so just so you know, Adams, you could have just said LFG. You could have said, let's fucking go. And I would have been like, yeah, Adams, hey, welcome in. Let's go. I'm teasing you. Cover King saying I can get Strider 6+ and Glass now 5+ for -145 if you're interested in that. Slim, welcome in and thank you for joining. it's the Ivan Drago thing from Rocky. That's literally how the Nationals managed Corbin last year. Was if he dies, he dies. They said, you will pitch 5 innings and you will like it. And we will not even look at the bullpen until you've given us 5 innings. And if that means you've thrown 100 pitches, so be it. If you've thrown 50 pitches and have given up 10 runs, so be it. I like that. Cover King saying, do you remember Lee Guterman, pitcher for Seattle, famous for his sinker pitch? I do remember the name. I don't remember a ton about him, but I will have to look him up after the show. Thank you for that name. That's a blast from the past. But I do remember that name. And yeah, very, very few sinker ballers have like super high strikeout rates. That's just not what it's designed to do. The sinker is always a pitch that's designed to be hit on a downward plane and be hit on the ground. Oh, you work for him. He was telling me stories for hours. That's awesome. I've actually had a bunch of conversations with some old Twins here at events that I was at and whatever. And yeah, the old timer, that's awesome. That's really cool, Cover Kings. But yeah, the old timers tell the best stories. That's really cool. All right, so that's the Sandy Man. Last but not least for pitchers, before we talk about some fantasy football, is to close out the night, Tyler Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow in limited action this year. So these numbers are from this year. Remember, this is limited action. Striking guys out at a 28.9% clip, walking guys at 14.4. Again, don't read a ton into that just because this is in very, very limited action. And so with Glasnow, you can see what the math says. And I did that obviously before the line came out. And we get a 5.5 and we get an outs line of, against the Brewers, 16.5. Now, what do we do with Tyler Glasnow? Well, first thing is he's, especially because the bullpen is now rested from the All-Star break, he's probably going to get about 80 pitches. I would be very, very surprised if he goes longer than 80 pitches or 5 innings, whichever comes first. He is still just coming back from injury, and the Dodgers are being extremely meticulously careful with him so that he is okay come playoff time. So when you go up and down this lineup, if I thought that he was going to go more than about 5 innings, then this is what the math would be. But you have to adjust because I know I have Ortiz at the bottom for 1. That might change now because based on the outs prop, I don't know if he's going to get to Ortiz 3 times. He probably gets to him twice, but I don't know if he's going to get to him 3 times. And so if he's not going to get to him 3 times with that contact metrics, even though Glasnow's got him 2 out of 2, having 1 is hard. So that's probably going to bring it down to a 6. Then I'm going to look and I'm going to see where Collins is in the lineup, because if he's going to bat any lower than where he is now, if he's going to bat in the 8 or the 9 hole, or actually any lower than he is, even though his contact metrics are very, very good for a Glasnow strikeout, my problem here becomes is that it's only going to face him twice. Only going to face him twice. And if a pitcher's only going to face a guy twice, it's really hard for me to mark down as a full strikeout, unless it's going to be 3 times. Unless I'm very sure he's going to face him 3 times. I'm not sure that he is. So I'm also interested to see if they want to bat Yelich in the top 4. You can see the past history here. You can also see that with Glasnow spending 51.2% of his time in the zone, Yelich's zone contact is under. He's got terrible strikeout metrics, and Glasnow also strikes out lefties at 31.4%. So Yelich is primed for a strikeout. This is going to be very lineup dependent, and I want to see how the line moves after the lineup comes out. I think if you're playing this one, the only way you really can look is over, even though the Brewers have been elite at not striking out lately. The other thing to keep in mind is that you also have to go and you have to look at who have they seen, because that's where like trends over the last X number of days can be a little bit of a mirage, because you see that they faced over the last few days Jake Irvin, Ogawa Sao, I can't even say his name, the Japanese pitcher for the Nationals, Mitchell Parker, and even when they faced the Dodgers. So they did just face Glasnow, who did get 5 in 5 innings, which I assume is also playing a part in the line. But they faced Clayton Kershaw, who's obviously not that much of a strikeout pitcher anymore. They destroyed Yamamoto, and then they saw they've seen a handful of pitchers who have not exactly been strikeout kings. And so, not to say that they're not swinging the bats really well, because they are. And if I'm being totally honest with you, if I got a free bet for a sleeper pick to win the National League this year, the Brewers would be my pick. I really, really like their lineup. I like their pitching now that Woodruff is back and that Peralta seems to have rediscovered at least some of his control. I really, really like what they're doing. Still think they need one more starter, one more true starter. But I really, really like what the Brewers are doing. So if you want a futures bet on winning the National League, I think that for me, it's Milwaukee. Now, getting back to Glasnow, I'm just not sure that for me, it's like, is he going to go long enough? Is he going to go long enough to hit this? Right? Is he going to go long enough to hit this? This is his second time seeing the Brewers in a very, very short time span. So for me, it's over or it's nothing. And it's also going to depend on where the lineup is after, and how the line moves after release. Eric also saying, I think Sandy's on the trade block. Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. However, I'm not sure what they're going to get for him. Maybe somebody wants to take it as a reclamation project. So we'll see. So anyways, this would be over or nothing for Glasnow. All right. Let's go. I'm going to bring something else up in just a second here. We're going to talk about fantasy football segment that I normally do on Thursdays, but since there was no show yesterday because there's no baseball, we'll do it today, and called You'll Probably, in parentheses, Thank Me Later. And so for those that don't know, for as heavy as I do MLB and strikeouts, I am even heavier into fantasy football. I've been playing for over 20 years, multiple high dollar leagues, it would take a while to talk about all the leagues that I've played in, but typically do dynasty leagues, but also do a few redrafts, but have been auction, dynasty, redrafts, you name it. I am extremely heavy into fantasy football. And each year I always try to find a number of guys that I think have a ton of upside and are are going to be undervalued for whatever reason. The offense they play in, are they come back from injury? Is it a different situation? Whatever the case might be. So, like for example, I'm not going to sit here and be like, draft Jamar Chase. Well, duh. Like, wouldn't everybody like that luxury, right? I try to find guys that you're going to get in the double-digit rounds if you're a snake draft, if you're going to get for a couple bucks if you're doing auction, and guys that are going to be, that I'm finding can be consistently undervalued and have a lot of upside. So in saying this, I'm not proposing that this guy, just like because my first two were Bashil Tutin from Jacksonville and Bryce Young from Carolina. Not saying that you should go all out to get those guys and throw them into your starting lineup and just make a lineup with all of these guys that I'm talking about here and you'll win your championship. No, these are meant to be high upside guys that you can get on the cheap that could have a whole bunch of value late in the season or even before that. And so before we do that, I just want to give population. Cebu Lions and Softball Hawks under 5 at -145. Two best NPB pitchers going head to head. Both have a 1.4 ERA. So I'll leave that up for a second here before we get on with, before I introduce who I'm going to talk about, just in case anybody wants to get some Japan, wants to get some Japanese baseball going there. I like that. And population also saying NPB underruns have been very profitable for me. They use a dead ball and the batters are below average while pitching is elite. I like that line. I like the read. All right. So this guy that I'm going to bring up here is someone who plays on an offense that you don't think about for passing. You for sure don't because of his quarterback. But he is a guy that has just consistently, last year, was sneaky consistent, and I think has a lot of upside this year. So this week's pick for, you'll probably thank me later, is Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, why Josh Downs? What do I like about Josh Downs? Well, the first and foremost is that Downs has been a sneaky, consistent receiver. Last year, he ranked 4th in targets per route and 17th in yards per route. And this was for the first half of the season with Anthony Richardson throwing him the ball. Now, there's a stat about Anthony Richardson that I found, which kind of made me gag a little bit. And that was, since 2000, there are 3 quarterbacks in the NFL that have had 250 pass attempts in a season and under a 50% completion percentage. Anthony Richardson is one. The other 2, Achilles Smith and Tim Tebow. Woof. So despite that, Downs put up these stats. He also, even playing from the slot and not playing in 2 wide receiver sets, had a 25.6% target share, which led the team. What that told me is, if you do the math about how often he was targeted when he was on the field, it was by far number 1 on the Colts. He also had a 69.4% catch rate, which in a vacuum doesn't look horribly impressive. It's good, but it's not horribly impressive. But you also have to look at under 50% completion rate and the percentage of balls that Richardson threw that were uncatchable, which was top 10, I believe, of all quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, I know he was hurt for part of the year. I get that. But Anthony Richardson, as a passer, has just shown absolutely nothing that would lead me to believe that there could be a lot of potential coming up here. So he put up those numbers even with very, very poor quarterback play for most of the year. I love Downs' speed and athleticism. He runs a 4.48 40. He gets open deep. The problem with him getting open deep last year, and I forget the exact metric, but he ranked very highly for open percentage, which is basically the percentage of time that you run a route open. And then there's even metrics that measure like how often are you open 10 yards downfield, 15 yards downfield. He ranks highly in that as well. Problem was he had a quarterback who couldn't get him the ball. And he also has an 89% burst score. He gets off the line quick and gets downfield quick. He needs a quarterback who can throw the deep ball. Now, we actually have a potential QB upgrade, and don't laugh because it's true. Daniel Jones, from a passing perspective, maybe not from a decision-making perspective, as a pure passer, is an upgrade over Anthony Richardson. Now, the latest reports from Indianapolis are both of these two are locked in a camp battle where it's a 50-50 shot. They both took an equal number of first-team reps in minicamp, and they both played an equal amount of time with the first-team offense. From reports from people who were there, Jones far outplayed Richardson. Richardson was playing hurt because he aggravated his AC joint. Now, he did sit out for the last few weeks of minicamp. He's going to be back for camp, but now he's starting basically on even footing with Daniel Jones for the starting quarterback job week 1. Daniel Jones is much better suited for Downs' game, and in games without Richardson last year, and this was with Joe Flacco at quarterback, Downs averaged 9.4 targets per game and 66.4 yards per game. When he has a capable passer, Josh Downs can produce. We can't discount the fact that Richardson might play a quarterback. They might even rotate quarterbacks. They might do what Richardson, like what they did for Justin Fields last year. They might do other things with their quarterbacks. So it's not a lock that Daniel Jones is going to be under center week 1 or even for the majority of the season. They might play quarterback carousel. Who knows? However, Downs does have a lot of opportunity here. The Colts offensive line is elite. And what that allows to do is to get time downfield. Remember, I talked about it's not Downs getting open. It's his quarterback getting him the ball. And his quarterback could not get him the ball on those deep routes last year. And after a while, they just even stopped throwing them. Flacco threw the ball deep a lot more, and you can see that as registered with Downs' stats. You do have the 8th and the 4th ranked at their positions, offensive linemen who are returning. The Colts offensive line does rank 5th overall in Pro Football Focus's preseason grade. So they have a stellar offensive line. They especially have guys that rank highly in pass protection. And if you believe in like mini camp and OTA usage, and we'll see how it translates into training camp, Downs was the most targeted receiver at mini camp. He was also, by multiple media reporters that were there that were local, is that he was the most open receiver was consistently beating the corners way more than Pittman, way more than anybody else in the receiving corps. And so while he will face some challenges potentially at quarterback, and also with the new addition Tyler Warren at tight end, there's going to be plenty of opportunities. Where I would put Downs, and what I would say for Downs is that I think in an auction draft you can get him for a couple bucks. If it's a $200 cap, you can probably get him for $3 to $5. If it's a snake draft, you can probably get him in the 10th or 11th round. And if you get that, and he's your wide receiver 4. And especially if you have a flex spot, and especially if your league has reward points for deep scores or deep catches, there's a lot of things that could add up here. So I'm not saying go out and reach for Josh Downs and take him as like your wide receiver 2, and then be like, well, why isn't he putting up wide receiver 2? Because he's not a fantasy wide receiver 2. He's a fantasy wide receiver. He has wide receiver 3 upside. And if he reaches that upside, he can be a absolutely fantastic wide receiver 3 for your fantasy team. So these are the guys I try to find, right? Like I said, like anybody can say draft Jamar Chase, draft Saquon Barkley, draft Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Anybody can say those things. I try to find guys that have a great situation that might fly under the radar. And I think that Josh Downs is one of those guys. So I'm probably keeping him in a dynasty league that I have him in, because it's a $200 auction league in my biggest money league. And I have him for $2. So $2 for 3 years. So I'm almost positive I'm going to keep him this year. And I'm also going to be targeting him in the double-digit rounds, as like I said, my wide receiver 4 probably. So after I have 3 wide receivers that I'm pretty sure I can start every week, I'm probably going to look to take a flyer or take a shot on Downs. And if his upside pays off, then I have some trade bait at my other position. And if not, then I didn't spend a lot of capital to get him. So let's see. Cover King saying Jonathan Taylor going to eat this year if they have competent quarterback play. If you compare his stats side by side with and without Richardson, it's kind of ugly. And some saying got me paid in a few slates last year. So anyways, the three that I've gone over so far, just in case you didn't remember, first one was running back Bashil Tootin of Jacksonville. Second one was quarterback Bryce Young of Carolina. And third is Josh Downs. So we'll have another one next week. Next week's, though, is going to be on the other side. So as we head into training camp, I've done three undervalued. Now you're going to see the other side of that. Now you're going to see three guys, and these will be bigger names. I know for sure who I'm doing as number one is guys that I think are going to be a little overvalued this year. And that not that they won't produce, but that people might not be as happy with their performance. So, all right. With that in mind, we will go to other looks, sides, totals, etc. I know, Eric, I didn't forget your question about Taj Bradley. And, I did go over all of his stuff. I'll be totally honest. Like, I hate capping this guy because he's so maddeningly inconsistent. I will say, though, that his hits have been at 5.5 pretty much consistently over his last four starts. It's now down to 4.5. Outs have been at 16.5. It's now up to 17.5. His Ks are holding at 5.5. So if anything, I would have a lean on the over for strikeouts, but I would also have a lean on the hits under at 4.5. He's faced his Baltimore team a couple times, and I know he's absolutely gotten torched. So he's given up 8 and 6 the two times that he's faced Baltimore over the last few months. So the question then becomes, why did his hits go down? That's what I asked myself for with Taj Bradley is why did his hits go down to 4.5, but his outs went up? What that tells me is he's probably going to have a decent start. So I would look for his hits under. I might even look for Taj Bradley to get the win. But strikeouts, I think it's probably set right where it's supposed to be. I think you got a 50-50 shot here for Taj Bradley, and both sides are juiced, which means there's not a whole lot of value in playing it. So hopefully that helped. Other looks, sides, totals for today. These are leans that I would have for money lines. I only look at plus money lines to potentially take a shot on. There's not it's not the prettiest slate in the world. The Nats at plus 128, I think, still has value, even though it's come down a little bit. I think that the Athletics at plus 116 has a little bit of value. There's actually a couple indications that says, I don't know about strikeouts, but Sears might have a pretty decent start. And if you don't mind drinking some juice, this isn't like my favorite play in the world, but the Mariners money line, it's already up to like minus 134. That would be one that I would go with. If you want totals, a couple totals that I think have some value are under 8.5 in Blue Jays Giants. I think that the Giants team total under also has some value. Same thing with Athletics Guardians under 8 or Guardians team total under. And I also think that there's a little bit of value on the under 8.5 in Philly and Anaheim. Part of that might just be because if Luzardo goes out and shoves, but those are the ones that I like. So, all right. I think that should do it for today. Major Dan is in the house. Hello, and thank you to you. Thank you for joining. So, long show today, but we had a fantasy football segment and we also had a lot to cover. So we'll go one more time through the chat, and I just want to thank everybody for being here. Philip, Eric, Berg, Population, Cover Kings, Roger, JT Eel, Jay McCarthy, Adams, Slim, and Major Dan. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for hanging here till the end. Hopefully this was informative. If you liked what you heard, please do give us a like. Smash that like button on YouTube. Like it, share it, etc. on X and social media platforms, and follow the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Myself, Spin Doc Sports on X. No weekend shows, but back on Monday with more, and we're back to normal with the normal stuff on Monday. So best of luck in all the action that you're tailing. We will see you then.